The best position you can ever be as a buyer is someone who doesn't care. The more you don't care, the better deals you get. I'm all for being positive, but I'm going to tell you some of the risks of buying a business because I want to be balanced. I don't want to be one of these guys that's rah, 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 all exciting. Anyone can do this. You can do it with your eyes closed. It doesn't work like that. So let me tell you some of the risks. The first is you overpay. You do not want to overpay ever because it would just take you longer to earn the profit to pay for the business that you bought. So overpaying is, I am allergic to overpaying. Negotiation and talking about price and terms, that's my real thing. It's not so much the finances, I leave that to other people. My real thing is that negotiation. And there is a huge difference between someone who can negotiate well and someone who doesn't even try and negotiate. So the person who can negotiate well will save hundreds of thousands off the price of a business. The person who doesn't try and negotiate will pay hundreds of thousands too much. Insufficient, DD stands for due diligence. So due diligence is the checking that we do in the business to make sure that it's what we think we're buying. So insufficient DD means that you don't know exactly what you're getting until you've got it. And usually insufficient DD means horrible surprises. And I don't like horrible surprises. Now, the truth of the matter is no amount of due diligence will tell you absolutely everything. So you've got to be prepared to expect the unexpected. However, it will allow you to negotiate the price. Good diligence allows you to get a better price. 3 types of due diligence. Commercial due diligence, financial due diligence, and legal due diligence. The legal is done by your lawyer, the financial is done by your accountant, and the commercial is probably going to be done by you. Let's say there's real estate in the business. The value of the real estate, a RICS valuation, an unbiased valuation, that's really important. You think everyone would do that? Not everyone does that. Sometimes a buyer would say, well, the seller told me that they had a valuation done last year and it was 800,000. So you're kind of accepting it. And it might be, it was done by an estate agent and the estate agent wants to get the deal and therefore the estate agent put the value up. If there are lots of subcontractors, lots of people on self-employed contracts, are they genuinely self-employed or is there going to be a big HMRC problem because, in fact, they only work for that company and they use that company's tools and as a result, they're deemed employees and therefore there's been an underpayment of national insurance and tax going back a decade. Yeah. So I'm making these up. These are just coming off the top of my head, but those are the sorts of things that you look at. Let's say it's all what you're really buying are contracts, and the seller's saying we've got all these contracts with these customers, but when you look at the contract, every contract can be cancelled with 30 days notice. Those aren't contracts. They can be cancelled with. That means in 30 days after buying the business, you might not have any customers. So that diligence would be around the contracts and the strength of that contract. And if, for example, there is a right to assign the contract, if you're doing an asset purchase. If you're doing an asset purchase, you're just buying the contracts. If the contracts can't be assigned, then you can't buy them. If you're buying the company, the shares, then you get them anyway. Poor management, they'll always tell you how wonderful all the top staff are. And then when you're there, you discover that they're not so wonderful after all. If you want to find out how to buy a business successfully, get your free business buying toolkit. The link is in the video description below. I think you should always buy a business rather than a job. The downside of buying smaller businesses is that you end up sitting behind the desk and doing the job of the previous owner. And that stops you running your own business and also stops you acquiring other businesses because you now just created a full-time job for yourself. So you've got to be mindful of that. Let me give you the question to ask the owner of a smaller business. When you go on holiday, who runs it all for you? Oh, Jeff. Jeff's amazing. Jeff's brilliant. He's been with me for years. He knows more about this than I do. He knows everyone. Jeff's incredible. Okay. So maybe Jeff is the right person to be the new manager of this business. Now, Jeff might not want that. Jeff might be happy being number 2. So you've got to check out who is going to be running this business. The general rule of thumb is if the only name on the list of people who could run this business is your name, then you've got yourself a future problem. But you can hire. Risk of buying, but you've got a poor lawyer. Now, you might think because someone's legally qualified, that makes them good. No, it doesn't. Now, you know that in every sector, there are people who are good at things and bad at things. There are really bad lawyers out there. And let me tell you, the worst lawyer you could possibly have is someone who tells you that they can do a business acquisition, but their real speciality is party wall, divorces, everything other than buying a business. But they did one once and they don't want to lose your business. They can see the pound signs and they say yes. And I spoke to one of my clients, Alison, yesterday. And in fact, actually, this was slightly different because it was the lawyer on the seller's side. And she's trying to complete before the end of this month on a hardware distribution business. And she was saying that there's no ways it's going to happen by the end of October because their solicitor hasn't got a clue. But the seller is so far in with fees and everything, they don't want to stop and start again with someone else. And you run up costs on a bad deal. You need to be able to spot a bad deal right at the start. Don't be the person who realizes it's a bad deal 3 weeks before completion, and now you've got all these costs that you've got to cover. So being able to identify good deal, bad deal, red light, green light, right at the start, very, very important. And don't become a motivated buyer. Let me tell you what a motivated buyer is. A motivated buyer is someone who says, I've got to do a deal. I want to tell Jonathan I've done a deal. Next time I go to the meeting, I want to say I've done the deal. I want to be the person who says, I've done the deal. I've got to do the deal. I've got to do the deal. So you do a bad deal just to do a deal. And then you live with the consequences. So don't be that motivated buyer. The best position you can ever be as a buyer is someone who doesn't care. I don't care. I don't care whether you buy or not. I don't care. I could buy this one. I could buy this one. You don't care. The more you don't care, the better deals you get. It's when you start really caring. And you slip into the motivated buyer position really easily, actually. Really easily. The fastest way not to be a motivated buyer is to have lots of choices, to have lots of options, to have lots of businesses that you're looking at. So when I've got a client who comes to me and keeps telling me about this deal that's falling apart, and he goes on and on about this deal, I said, why are you even telling me about a deal that isn't happening? Why are you telling me about something that isn't going to happen? Why are you doing that? I know why, because you're not looking at any others. The more you look at, it's like buying a house, isn't it? You go and look at one. Well, are you going to get the best deal if you look at one? Go and look at 10, then you've got some choice. I mean, some people go look at 100 properties before they buy one. I mean, that's going a bit far maybe, but the more options you got, the better it is. But you don't have to be a millionaire to buy a million plus business. That is the key message so far from this morning.